Okay, everybody, let's take it from the top.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Hi-ho, everybody, and welcome back to D+. It's the show about all things Disney. I'm one of your hosts, Griffin Tennell, Griffey Deep, and with me, as always, is the wonderful, the amazing Mr. Mitch George. How's it going?
Did you know there's a strike going on?
There is, of course, folks, there is the WGA and SAG after strike going on right now that we like to mention on every episode of the show until it eventually ends, hopefully with the strikers victorious. And it definitely there's some irony in this week's...
It'll either be that or the heat death of the universe. Like, one is going to happen.
What dies first, the universe or corporate greed? Well, we both know it's the universe.
Given the news this week out of the video game world, it's definitely the universe.
Yeah, definitely some irony in striking with this week's choice. We are talking about Newsies, a movie all about the 1899 Newsboys strike. Kind of, to some degree. It definitely does not follow the exact same story, but it's loosely based. Yeah, Mitch, how you doing? How you treating? Life treating you?
You don't want to know. I've had three coffees today. I took a nap in my workday just because I just couldn't. Most weekends we're busy. I think we have plans through every weekend through Canadian Thanksgiving. I have to preface that because our Thanksgiving is the second weekend of October, while it's still nice and fall-like and you can go do fall things, as opposed to the end of November when everything is cold and people are trying to kill themselves in Walmart.
I mean, that just happens regardless down here, but...
That's true. No, life's been really busy, but getting to find time to chat with you and watch things that I would not have watched otherwise and will recommend others do not watch for any reason whatsoever.
Yeah, Newsies was a pick because Newsies is a weird one where the movie is a mixed bag. There's good parts. It's not bad. I'm not going to let you say that it's bad. It's not good. It's not bad either.
It's not good. It does have Bill Pullman. Like, you can't be mad at Bill Pullman.
Like, if we're really being honest, Christian Bale is fantastic in this movie. That said, this movie has spawned one of what I consider to be one of the best musicals. Full stop.
Like stage musicals.
Yeah, stage musicals.
Yeah.
So I will definitely be coming at this with this angle, but let me hit y'all with that rigmarole before we actually start talking about this movies. Movies. Actually, I guess
you say movies because I know you finished watching the movie and then went and watched the stage production, which is also available on Disney Plus.
Which we'll talk about Pro Shots because I need to talk about Pro Shots.
I won't because I didn't watch the damn musical. I watched the movie.
It's way better.
I will, but you told me to watch. I asked you 6 times before I turned it on. Am I watching the movie or the musical? And you said the movie.
It was honestly.
It sounds like that was a mistake.
It was honestly a coin flip. I knew I was watching.
You know I prefer musicals, Griffin. I still watch Come From Away on Apple TV Plus on repeat. I mean, if you want to watch something, go watch that.
I still love
it's great.
Kiss the Fish, but that's beside the point. Let me get through the rigmarole.
I kissed that god. Come on.
Okay. We are the Disney podcast. Of course, folks, if you're listening on podcast services, head over to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@D+us, where you can check out this video in video form. You can see our faces. You can see this lovely scrolling background that we have. And you can see some of our other videos. Are there weekly shows right now? No. We're not talking about new things. We've been over this. What we are getting, though, is video essays. There is going to be another video essay soon. Unfortunately, it does require me to go out of my apartment 4 more times at least. So I need to actually finish that. It's all for the video essay. It will make more sense when you actually watch it, Mitch.
You make that sound like you don't leave your apartment at all.
I don't leave my apartment that much. I literally only leave for work and coffee, and friends.
Don't you work from home?
Yes.
So why would you leave for work? I'm confused now.
I have multiple jobs.
Right, I forgot about that bit.
Yeah, go check out that stuff. Seriously, though, this next one is coming up fast, and I'm looking forward to it, as is the one after that, that I'm also working on. That's right. I'm working on 2 at the same time right now, Mitch.
All right, we got to talk about that one, and you got to let me help with some of this stuff.
Look,
or at least participate.
Look, here's what happens with these video essays, right? I start making one. I'm like, okay, cool. Get to a stopping point for the night. Go to bed. Get another idea. I'm like, shit. That's a good idea. I start writing it and start editing it. And suddenly I have like 6 video essays I'm working on at once.
Fair enough.
But no, today we are talking. That's all we've got. Yeah, go check out our other stuff. There's some great stuff. Go support the writer's strike. We are not the people to come to for strike information. We are just a couple of idiots. We don't know what we're talking about in that regard, but if you give me the enough time to quickly check my TikTok page,
yes, that is correct, folks. Griffin's main source of information with regards to the intricacies of labor laws and unionization in the United States is his TikTok feed.
Because there's some great writers on TikTok that are covering the strike, particularly at that Clarified. Her name's Clara. That's why I'm confused. Highly recommend checking out her TikToks if you're interested on keeping up with day-to-day strike information. She's an actual writer from the WGA, so she knows what she's talking about. Also, she's just kind of funny as hell. Makes sense for a comedian / writer.
Kind of funny as hell? Not just funny as hell? Like, come on.
I mean, I was kind of just going and, okay, whatever. Let's talk about Newsies, directed by the great Kenny Ortega. Look, I love Kenny Ortega. He gave me a High School Musical, so.
Fine. This is just a High School Musical podcast at this point. I feel like we've covered that more than anything else. Probably. Except for the MCU, Star Wars, Pixar.
All the other stuff.
No, Indiana Jones, we only did the one, even though we should have done all 5. I'll stop talking now.
Yeah, Kenny Ortega has done a lot, especially in terms of Disney. He's known, specifically in Disney. He's known much more outside of Disney, but specifically in Disney, he is known for High School Musical, The Cheetah Girls 2, Descendants, and not Disney, but I do always still need to constantly shout it out. He was the one who directed Julie and the Phantoms. Everyone should watch Julie and the Phantoms if you still have Netflix.
I don't, so I won't.
Loser.
No, look, y'all didn't have to deal with this, but in I want to say March or April. I'm going to look this up.
Yeah, it's when they started the cutoff for multiple houses.
Yeah,
somehow I'm still not cut off yet.
So as soon as they announced they were going to do it in Canada, I didn't wait for them to kick me out. I said, I'm voting with my wallet immediately. You want to do this when you've been not doing this for years? It's the Unity thing all over again. Like, you can't go back on what customers plan to use your services for just because you want to make a buck. And I've needed them to see that by me not paying those bucks.
See, I don't pay for Netflix. I use somebody else's. So my plan is to continue to use it until I can no longer use it.
It was May.
Of when my wallet is already not helping them, I'm like, why bother?
Not your wallet, but it was the same in our household. Netflix was just one of those ones that I paid for, but a bunch of people used it just like they did with other services that I used. Thankfully, someone else is paying for DAZN. That gets real expensive during football season. But they all were. Everyone was on board with saying we're not going to have Netflix because this is stupid, even though it may or may not have affected us when it actually went.
Yeah, they're also quietly not really forcing it all that much in the U.S., which I find funny, but.
They're also quietly not making any good content. So
they do have some good stuff. There is some good stuff. But also that stuff for me is like Pokemon and anime.
Yeah, I forgot about that happening. So I definitely have to find alternative means to consume that.
And then there's other stuff I do like Wednesday and some of the other stuff, but that's all very specific to me. Anyways,
you know what
Newsies.
They did? You know what? No.
I stopped.
Okay?
You didn't have to say no extra times.
I have one very significant bone to pick with Netflix.
Okay, I'm going to let you go because I got to turn a light on in this room.
Perfect. At some point, Netflix for the longest time for me was a Power Rangers machine. They had every season of Power Rangers available on that service. All of the stuff from the 90s, the early 2000s, the Disney years, which were not great, but were still, campy and fun because it's Power Rangers. They removed everything except for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and the newest stuff. The stuff in the middle was the good stuff. I mean, Mighty Morphin is great. I grew up on Mighty Morphin. But at the same time, it was nice to go back and watch a random episode of Power Rangers in Space or Lost Galaxy or Wild Force. These things had legacy. And they're just like, nah, it's gone. And that really pissed me off.
I stepped away.
I don't know if it was a Hasbro problem or a Saban problem or a Netflix problem, but fuck them all. I'm done with Netflix because of what they did for Power Rangers.
I stepped away and you went on an old person rant. Anyways, Newsies. Yeah, like I mentioned, directed by Kenny Ortega, starring Christian Bale, Bill Pullman, and Margaret and Robert Duvall. Cinematography by Andrew Laszlo. Music by Alan Menken. A budget originally of $15 million and a box office, Mitch, of $2.8 million. This was so easily a flop. Originally released on April 10th, 1992, with a runtime of 121 minutes. This movie did get mixed reviews, actually. Some people, it was like, it's okay. Sometimes it wasn't. It eventually did end up getting a cult following, though, on home video. People did actually end up, it was one of those weird movies that people liked after the fact. And it was, as we've mentioned a few times now, adapted into a stage musical on Broadway by Disney Theatrical Productions, also known as Disney on Broadway, where it was nominated for 8 separate Tony Awards, winning 2, including Best Original Score. Other than that, that's pretty much everything notable about this movie. It's interesting watching this movie, especially in its relation specifically to the Newsboys strike of 1899. Because it's like, it kind of gets some stuff right, it kind of doesn't.
So, this may seem... No, you know what? I'm just not going to say it.
No, not going to?
I'm just not going to say it.
Just because you don't like this movie?
No, I was going to say this movie has... No, I'm just not going to do it. It's not right. Nope.
I'll talk about the historical accuracy then of this movie before we really talk about the movie itself. So, the actual Newsboy strike lasted for 2 weeks in 1899 from July 10th to August 2nd. The leader of the strike was a young kid named Louis Belletti, nicknamed as Kid Blink. Our main character of this movie, Jack Kelly, is pretty well based around him and another Newsie, Morris Cohen. These two kind of together were what made Jack Kelly, was what made this character. In the movie, the strike ends with the Newsies winning. Not surprising. In the actual strike itself, this actual strike ended with a compromise, with the World and the Journal agreeing to actually start buying back any unsold copies of the newspapers, and I think they lowered the rate, they increased it, but still ended up increasing it. Let me double check.
Yeah, when I looked into it, I think they left the rate the same.
Yeah, left the rate the same, but they would buy
the paper at the same price, but they would buy back excess paper so that the kids wouldn't have to stay up. You know, that was the biggest thing, was the working hours. Is they would have to stay up to a ridiculous degree, get very little sleep to try and sell all of these papers, because if they didn't, they were losing money. So
I think the other interesting thing about the end of the strike here is that also that Kid Blink, as their leader, disappeared at the end of the strike. He was accused originally of betraying the strike and accepting a bribe. We don't know exactly what happened. We don't know.
Just wanted to interject there and reiterate something that I've been reading about and now seems to be fairly official. The United Auto Workers Union will strike for General Motors and Stellantis. So there will be thousands of auto workers that are also going to be striking for better wages, better working conditions from these multi-billion-dollar companies. So good on them for using their right with the unions that they have established to, fight for better working conditions. Good on you.
Hell to the yeah. Of course, this is a musical. We can't talk a musical without talking about music, which is always one of my favorite times when it comes to these things. What's interesting about that is there aren't that many songs in this musical.
At least one of which was nominated for a Razzie.
Yeah, when you're when you're that bad. Well, not just nominated, it won.
It did win. It was the only. Thankfully, it was the only Razzie that it won that year. There were some other stinkers that
There
come
was
out,
some other stuff nominated from this movie. Yeah, people really didn't like this
including
movie.
Best Picture, Worst Picture, Worst Director, Worst Supporting Actor for Robert Duvall, and Worst Supporting Actress for Anne Margaret.
Yeah, this ranks among the lowest grossing live action films produced by Walt Disney Studios ever. This is due to the film being pulled from many theaters after a poor opening weekend. Interesting. But no, there's some good songs in here. I think most of the good songs in here are frankly made better by the musical, and that's really what gives them at least some sort of fun in my brain. You know, stuff like King of New York, Seize the Day, Santa Fe.
I love Christian Bale. I had a fun moment watching this where I was able to turn to Carmen, who had no idea what was going on. She's like, do you recognize that actor? She's like, no. What are you talking about? And I just got to whisper while we were lying in bed watching this movie. I'm Batman. It was a great time.
Batman can sing. Yeah, here's the reminder, folks, that Christian Bale isn't just... Christian Bale can sing as a kid.
I was going to say, no ill will against the man. He's a phenomenal actor. There were moments in Santa Fe where I wanted to turn the volume down.
Here's a reminder, though, folks, that Christian Bale didn't just do Batman. He's actually a pretty good actor.
Oh, yeah. Christian Bale is one of the greatest actors of our generation. I will argue to this day that The Prestige is like a top 10 movie all time.
Fair enough. I want to give a particular shout out in this film to The World Will Know. Probably one of my favorite moments in this film, and then also just in the actual stage show itself, is it's just such a powerful song. It is them, like, you know, spreading the word, getting things out, and it's a good one. Like, ensemble songs are always some of my favorites when it comes to the differences between stage shows and movies. And that's another really interesting one with this, is I feel like we get more often than not stage shows turned into movies, not the opposite. I say that when, like, one of the big shows on Broadway right now is Back to the Future, and Almost Famous was around last year and whatnot. But when it comes to ones that we talk about on the show, I feel like it's always the opposite. Stuff like West Side Story or Into the Woods, which were both middling in their own ways. This is a weird case of it's the opposite.
I mean, also, Disney has for years turned their feature films into Broadway musicals. You look at Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, Frozen, what I'm assuming is going to eventually be Moana, Frozen 2,
Tarzan.
Insert Wish eventually, I'd imagine. Like, it just had Encanto.
Right now, Hercules. Winnie the Pooh also has a musical adaptation. There are rumors of a Coco stage
That would
show.
be great.
We've also seen Mary Poppins, High School Musical. Even stuff like Camp Rock and Descendants have gotten stage shows. Freaky Friday.
I still got to go to that
that
Lighthouse immersive experience before it closes in Toronto.
Yeah. Honestly, like, Disney theatrical productions almost deserves like a video essay or a hangout and let's talk about just how much stuff they've done or something. Because
how many Disney Broadway shows have you seen?
2.
Okay. I've only seen one.
I have seen Lion King and I have seen Frozen.
I've only seen Lion King. And I believe Aladdin with its touring.
And I should say, I haven't seen those on Broadway. I have seen those when they've come to Portland.
Touring, yeah. I haven't seen... The only show I have ever seen on Broadway was Rock of Ages. But, okay, so this is something
for what it's worth, by the way, of movies that became musicals. One of the ones of my Broadway ones was Beetlejuice. So, like, yes, those are very much in abundance in Broadway. I want to make that very clear. In terms of Disney-specific, what we've talked about on this show, they have not been.
I was just going to say, Aladdin's coming to Toronto in February if you're looking to make a trip.
No. Because I have a concert that month, and then I've got stuff before that. I also think that's...
I'm also thinking if the strike is still going on, we could do an episode around that time if I do go see Aladdin, just about Disney musicals.
Do it. Like, because I think I'm seeing Lion King in January.
Yeah,
when that
I've
comes
only
to.
seen Lion King twice.
But that's requiring me to actually like remember the Portland Broadway schedule.
Yeah.
And the only one I'll ever remember is that Beetlejuice comes in April. So
Yeah, the only thing we have tickets to see right now is 6. So I would like to
great
at some
show.
point buy these Aladdin tickets.
Mm-hmm. There's also a rumor, by the way, that I always feel like to mention this with Disney and Broadway. There's a rumor that they're working on a possible show based on the Muppets, which would just be the most amazing thing in the world to me, and I would book a ticket to New York immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Please, please, Disney. You know that would sell numbers. Let's talk actual story. No, let's not do that. Let's talk about short films. Mitch, why don't you like this movie?
Wasn't it good? I found it at times challenging to hold my attention. I didn't really care about the characters all that much. I think there's just something about most of the kids in this movie that maybe it's just me, but they were all very punchable, if that makes sense.
Jesus.
Like, I didn't enjoy, like, no. Okay, so I would not punch a child. Okay, let me preface this with that, okay? It's just one of those things of like, these kids are just, no, but it's just like, it's that attitude, It's like, It's how I felt watching West Side Story. How about we put it that way? Where I didn't really like any of the characters. There really wasn't anything endearing. Maybe I just don't like New Yorkers. I don't know.
Maybe you just don't like children.
Maybe I don't.
See, I didn't see that part at all. For me, it's just the story lags at a lot of spots. I think it wants you to care more about characters than you think than they give you credit to. I think one of the biggest missed opportunities in this movie is Crutchy.
Yeah.
Where you should love Crutchy. The moment that Crutchy gets captured should be one of the saddest moments in the show for you. And it is in the stage musical. Yeah. Crutchy is so much more of a character there. He's just not in this one. I don't care for David at all.
Yeah.
I do like Jack. I don't know why. I sympathize.
Yeah, I sympathize with David, but there just isn't enough character to it, if that makes sense. Like, it is very much beat to beat. You get what you expect out of it. There's a lot of pop and circumstance. There's the dancing and the choreography and the music is very very good, especially the ensemble stuff.
That is the highlight of this movie.
Yeah,
the music is great.
Yeah, and the choreographer, like Kenny Ortega being a choreographer, makes a ton of sense. Looking at basically everything he's done, other than maybe Hocus Pocus. But Hocus Pocus had some moments, but it didn't feel as choreographed as his other works.
I think the other issue I have with this is a lot in terms of like the Delancey brothers and the Strikebreakers. They very much pit this as like, Pulitzer is like trying to use children to fight these children. That's not what was happening. It's like
these were
full-grown adults beating the fuck out of children.
Yeah,
and that does a disservice to the story. I understand why Disney makes the decisions that they make, especially being who they are, and them probably not wanting to. Actually, did PG-13 exist at this point? I forget when Temple of Doom came out.
I don't care. Probably not.
I can see them wanting a smaller rating, though. They don't necessarily want a movie where there's adults beating the shit out of children.
Yeah, like this was like the fact that this had Disney on it. This was the Disney channel. This feels like the first DCOM. To be honest, like this felt like it was made for TV. It was made to be consumed on a Friday night with commercials advertising the latest Nerf.
I don't agree with that. I think it's because so many of our DCOMs now are musicals that fall into that. This still feels like a movie to me. It does have they do the 2-act thing that I love out of musicals. I do think that cinematography wise, this movie is actually pretty great.
It's shot fairly well. Yeah.
90s.
A
lot of it does look really, really good. It's just that the only hard spot for me is the story.
I just want to say before we get into the story, I appreciate you calling it the early 90s and not the late 1900s, because this came out the year I was born. And if you had said the late 1900s, I was going to walk out of the room.
You realize I was technically born in the 90s, right?
Yeah, I know, but you also like to make old jokes.
Well, yeah, because you're old, and you literally went on a rant earlier about Power Rangers.
Dude, I grew up with Power. I got Power Ranger toys in my house. There's one back here.
It's funny as I say this, knowing full well I have a Power Ranger somewhere in this apartment. So
I'd flip you off if we weren't on YouTube.
I mean, you still can. I can blur it. I'm not going to, but I can.
You're not going to. You edit this? No.
There's
you
a
put
reason.
this raw this.
I edit when
You know,
necessary. Otherwise, this is live production, baby.
It's easier.
It's easier, and that's also where my expertise is. So,
Yeah.
although I actually got to stop
tracks.
saying that because I should probably give myself more credit in the editing bay.
Yes, you should.
But no, I think so the story is the issues of this part. The music is great. David just kind of sucks. I wish they had done more with what's her name? Shoot, what's her name?
The
Metal
love
Larkin.
interest.
No, Meta Larkin.
Oh yeah.
Yes, the love interest as well. But Meta,
Yeah, that whole thing was kind of just like, what?
the Bowery and everything, like it being the spot for the
Runaways.
for the rally is great, and I love that. I just wish that we gotten a little bit more of like that convincing with her and her support of them. Yeah, the love interest is just tacked on to this movie. It is not a big thing. It feels really out of place when he actually kisses her.
It feels forced in the way that a lot of these things felt forced in the 90s. Like this musical or this film is definitely an artifact of the times, which is probably why seeing this now for the first time, I'm kind of like, like the lack of diversity, the fact that you have a character like Crutchy that doesn't get the sympathy of the audience you would expect as, you know, one of the only characters in the film that is a visible minority, in this case his disability. So like, yeah, it doesn't track well in 2023.
The other hilarious thing to me about this movie is Roosevelt, of him like barely being in this, and like he's barely in the musical too, but at least he has actions in the musical.
That was fun.
Well, no, it's hilarious to me that he's like says one thing and then it's just there. He has a complete conversation with Jack off screen. Like, these are the kind of things that you typically show for your main character. Mm-hmm. And, like, I get what they were doing with it, but I do think it's funny. I think one of the best. I think the other highlight in terms of characters in this movie is Denton. I think Denton does a really good job and then just falls off on the third act.
Again, Bill Pullman is great until they make him sing.
Even then, he's not bad. He's just not good.
He's not bad, but it's downhill from that point.
Fair enough. Like, I think he's great when he's writing the stories. The moment that he has to, like, step away,
yeah,
is rough. I love him in that scene of them printing the papers. And him being this more. I like the plot
implications of. I like the plot implications of him being silenced because big media doesn't want to talk about this. Like it does still, like, as much, you know, flack as I'm throwing its way. There's a lot here that still resonates, given the current geopolitical climate, and especially looking at Canada. I don't know if you're aware of this. Did you know that the Canadian government passed a bill, which was basically going to force social media platforms to pay the news organizations whose articles were shared on that platform. So let's say a CNN article was shared 200,000 times on Facebook. Facebook would owe CNN money for that being shared by individuals. So in Canada, they've done this. And in retaliation, Meta has said on every Meta platform, we will not serve any news articles to Canadians. So they are suppressing the news due to a bill that was passed to try and have these large multinational corporations pay for what is essentially free content that is being written for and disseminated on their platform.
Tech companies suck.
Yeah. Fuck you, Zuckerberg.
So there's a couple things I want to get into with the story of this. Particularly, of course, I will be talking about the musical because the musical is way better. But also, like, why the hell are we talking about this movie? This movie's a box office flop. This movie is not great. Obviously, it's based around strikes, and I do think that is still relevant to our time. I think why I wanted to do this movie is because at its core, bad shit happens. Half of this movie is just terrible shit happening to our heroes.
Yeah.
And they still come out on top. I do think this is a very hopeful story. And I think that's something good to have right now. I think a lot of our stories we talk about on D Plus Us are these stories of, bad things happen, the hero rises up, defeats them, moves on, typical hero's journey shit. And I like that this one is, no, shit happens after shit happens after shit happens. And out of pure, hey, guess what? We cannot give up, otherwise we are screwed. They win. And I think that's a good story to be telling right now.
I thought of a better story we could have reviewed that basically falls under the same plot, but uses much more colorful characters.
What movie?
A Bug's Life.
Yeah, but I didn't want to review another Pixar movie right now.
Fine.
Look, the thing about it is, like, yeah, other movies have done this. And Bug's Life is also a great example of this, of, like, quite literally workers rising up to... Did they kill the grasshoppers in that? I feel like they killed grasshoppers in that movie, and we didn't ever talk about it.
I feel like it's left ambiguous whether or not Hopper gets eaten by the bird. But I don't think there's actual murder in that.
I'm pretty sure Hopper gets eaten,
even though people definitely died during the strike.
Mm-hmm. Like, this was not a good time. Definitively, full stop. And I like that this movie doesn't try to paint it like it was.
Yeah.
Disney did learn from their mistakes. And I think that's why I wanted to talk about this. It's like, yeah, it is not a good time for anybody, but good things did come out of it. I mean, there was compromise. I do think that this is a really important chapter in the overall conversation about child labor. Which, man, how fucked is it that people are trying to bring that shit back?
Now, there's that, but you know what was worse is I read somewhere the other week about some billionaires complaining that they couldn't have slaves. Like, why can't we pay people to serve us anymore? Are you fucking for real right now? Like, oh my God, people are just fucking, like, I'm swearing a lot on this episode. That's your fault.
We're talking about heavy shit this week, and I'm fine with swearing. Besides, you got to catch up to me with how much I swear on this show.
I suppose I do my best not to, because I know we're still a Disney-focused podcast. But yeah,
I've told you so many times we're in the most anti-Disney podcast possible.
I know we could actually do Christopher Robin at some point, because there's labor disputes in that as well, right? Like, he's having to lay off a whole bunch of people at that company and find ways to cut costs to be able to save jobs.
And he ends up not because of the animals, if I remember.
No,
right.
he ends up being able to do it and giving people paid vacation, I thought. Or am I misremembering that movie?
I'm going to be honest. It's been a little while since I've watched Christopher Robin.
We should watch Christopher Robin. That's a great movie. Ewan McGregor can do no wrong. Let's talk about Newsies.
Watching Ewan McGregor. That's our next episode. No, not actually.
Sweet.
We have a few in the tank that we're working on.
I'm gonna put it on the list.
Put it on the list. No, I do like this movie. Let's talk about the actual differences. The significant changes that Newsies makes going to a musical format. So, you remember Denton? Denton does not exist in the musical.
Really?
Denton is replaced by a female journalist named Catherine Plummer. Catherine Plummer also replaces the love interest of the movie. And guess what? They actually have a story about how they talk to each other.
So wait, are they still kids in the musical? Because
they are still kids.
You've got a journalist.
They're still kids in the musical.
So you've got an adult journalist writing about.
No, she's a kid too. She's about 17. She's about 17, 18.
Okay, I mean that's where
they all.
I actually did the math because I was like, Christian Bale looks too old to be a child in this. He was 17 when they filmed it. So It tracks.
Makes sense. Yeah, they do that. There's just all of the stuff with Davy's family is pretty much just not in the musical. It is backstory to them. Jack is much more of a womanizer in the movie. He's actually simultaneously way more and way less sympathetic of a human being. The other major thing I like about the musical is Jack is an artist. They actually give Jack a background. They don't just make it just this dude that escaped a
Lost
prison.
his family. Yeah.
He doesn't lie about the prison, about his losing his parents either, which again is one of the things that I think is just one of the dumbest plot points in this entire movie. It's like, no, you literally work with like primarily orphans and you live with all of them. We all know you don't have parents. What else do we have here? We got a lot more music, obviously. I mentioned that the family's absent. The scene with Spot Conlon is also absent. The Brooklyn Newsies don't actually end up... all the other Newsies from the other districts don't actually end up appearing until after the rally. The arresting of Jack takes place before the rally. It feels like a completely different story, even though it is the same story beats. In the musical,
feel like I gotta watch this now.
Yeah, it's much better. In the musical, Jack goes to confront Pulitzer. Why do I keep forgetting Pulitzer's name when it's like the Pulitzer Prize exists?
It was named after this dude, yeah.
He goes to confront Pulitzer and be like, hey, we're holding this rally. It only seems fair to give you your opportunity to have a conversation with us there. Like, totally being a smart ass, but like still offering it up to him. That is the point where he gets arrested. There, it also gets revealed that Catherine Plummer is not her actual name. Her actual name is Catherine Pulitzer. That's right. She's his daughter. Just to add the fun stuff in there. And here's the big stuff. You actually give a shit about Crutchy in the musical. Crutchy is much more of a character in the musical. He's like Jack's best friend. He is like the heart and soul of the Newsies. He is so much more the reason why Jack is going to give up. And he has his own song called Letter from the Refuge.
Oh, man.
It was added for the national tour. And it replaced that scene where Jack visits him when he's captured.
Right.
It is so much better.
I can only imagine.
Now, the Pro Shot itself is an interesting story in of itself because it's not the original version of the show. In fact, it was a reunion of the cast. A lot of them had gone on to go do other things, notably Cara Lindsay as Catherine, Ben Fankhauser as Davy, Andrew Keenan Bolger as Crutchy, Tom Bracco as Spot, and Jeremy Jordan as Jack. Were all the people coming back to be on this. It was filmed. It was great. It's actually a very good Pro Shot. And then it was released in 2017 for digital download. It did also have a run in theaters where, guess what? Oh. It did better than the original movie.
But did it do better relative to inflation?
Yes.
Okay. Okay then.
Not to mention, but also not entirely surprising given that it was like a consistently popular musical being brought to theaters. We don't get a ton of Pro Shots. I wish we got more. Pro Shots, I think, are the way to like really bring theater to more people, and we see a couple of them here and there.
I'm surprised we didn't see more during the pandemic.
Yeah, the big one we got during the pandemic was Come From Away in Hamilton.
I was going to say, it was really
and
those
both
two.
of which took the internet by a storm when they came out. That Come From Away
is so good.
Amazing.
That Pro Shot is incredible.
We're getting a new one soon for Waitress.
That'll be good.
That one had this really wild premiere where they premiered it in Times Square, where they took over the billboards and they played it, and then it just disappeared. We didn't know if we were going to get it again, and now they're going to be bringing it to theaters, and then presumably after theaters, it will eventually end up on some streaming service somewhere.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
Pro shots are very, very good things. I wish Broadway did more of them. They are expensive to produce. That's why a lot of our favorite shows just don't get them. You also occasionally just have just tough situations. The Beetlejuice, for instance, was supposed to get a pro shot, and because of COVID, it just didn't happen. And then when they came back, they tried to do it again, and scheduling issues they just weren't able to make it happen. And it sucks. It's a piece of content that is going to be lost when that show is done. Obviously, you still have bootleg, which in an official capacity, we do not support bootlegs. That's what
I already
know
fully admitted I'm going to bootleg Pokemon because I don't have Netflix.
No, bootlegging in Broadway is different.
Yes, I will give you that.
I'm all for taking content from Netflix. I'm all for sailing the seven seas, so to speak. Yo ho. But no, of official capacity, I don't necessarily support bootlegs. That said, I've definitely watched a couple of slime tutorials, if you know what I mean. I do think it's worth watching the Broadway version of this, though, Mitch. I do think we should have done that for this show, because it's so much better. It is almost the exact same runtime as the movie, slightly longer by a couple minutes, and somehow fits in like 70% more story than the original.
Okay, how about this? When we run out of shit to talk about because this strike goes on another year and a half, we'll talk about this next year.
Yes, we're going to come back around on it.
We're coming back to it, yeah.
One of my favorite things about the musical itself is honestly the stage production of it, is the actual set that they use. Because the set is so cool. It's essentially like just a bunch of fire escapes that have different screens that come around from it to show different things. And they do such a good job of using it and using the actual stage floor. Anything that has moving sets is something that I'm immediately going to be interested in. What's interesting to me about this show as well is that this isn't the only Broadway show I love that is like largely about labor dispute. One of my favorite shows, period, is a show called Hadestown. And a large portion of that show is about labor dispute. If y'all haven't listened to Hadestown, go listen to Hadestown because it is fantastic.
I feel like I just missed it in Toronto. That makes me sad.
Rip. What you should do.
Oh, no, looks like it's March.
Okay, you gotta see it. It's amazing.
Actually, it looks like it closed.
Rip.
In August. I just missed it.
Bummer.
I'm sad.
Yeah, that said, I don't feel like we need to do a like story recap for this movie because the story is pretty straightforward.
I feel like we've kind of done it, and there isn't much more to say, to be honest. I feel like this one's going to be a little shorter than usual. I'm
honestly kind of fine with that. The musical episodes typically are.
Unless we did Hamilton, that would go on for... I mean, you did Hamilton. But
Hamilton was one of our first episodes as an audio podcast. 3 names ago. Yeah. The show's had a lot of names. I think it's kind of funny at this point.
Let's just keep rebranding. What's the next brand? It can't be Disney Plus. It can't be D Plus Us because we're not going to talk about new Disney shit because they're going to fucking strike for the rest of the time.
Well, dude, I started the podcast, right? And then I joined like a crew that was trying to put together a podcast network. And they was like, hey, we like you. You want to join us? I was like, okay, cool. Let's rebrand the show.
Sure,
join the podcast network. The podcast network imploded, but we survived. Hell yeah.
Goddamn right we did.
Then I rebranded that again to have my own branding on the show. And then we realized that it's like, hey, if we want to actually start doing anything legitimate with this show, we can't have the name Disney in the title. And so we rebranded it again. And now here we are. It's a weird life that this show has had.
Here we are telling Zuckerberg to suck it. Gotta love it.
Oh, we've been doing that since day one.
I know.
We are firmly anti-billionaire on this podcast.
Until one of us makes it big, in which case we'll be pro-billionaire.
In which case that person leaves the show, because let's be honest, why would we be doing this if we were billionaires?
Because it's fun?
That's a very good point.
Because I enjoy your company? Fuck you, you're just going to dump me?
We're going to dump you. We're just going to hang out.
God damn it.
The truth is, I would never become a billionaire. Because I wouldn't.
There's also that, yeah. The wealth gap only grows and grows, and there's no way of, pulling yourself out of the middle class ever.
Right. So yeah,
there's that.
that's Newsies, folks.
That's why we keep just talking about this stuff to forget about the pains of real life.
Yeah, this is one of those episodes where it's like, yeah, this was a little bit more real than the stuff we normally talk about, but I do think it's important to talk about it. Like, these strikes that are happening across multiple industries are important, are necessary, and we should be supporting them. Frankly, if you listen to our show and put up with our shit, you probably support all the strikes. We're pretty, we don't hide what we believe in on this show, and I think that's one of our better qualities, frankly.
We're transparent with you, because if I was listening to something, I would want to know that the thing I'm listening to is people being a bunch of phonies, bunch of big fat phonies.
But if you want to take something away from this episode about the actual content on Disney Plus today, take this. This movie's fine. You don't really need to watch it. But the musical, the musical's where
go watch the musical. And if you really want to enjoy a good pro shot on your streaming service of choice, come from a ways sitting there on Apple TV Plus, just waiting for you to go and watch it.
Mm-hmm. Also, just the music. Do you need a pick-me-up in your day? Listen to any song from this soundtrack.
Mencken don't miss. Mencken don't miss.
God, yeah, that's like the wild thing about this is Mencken's music with Ortega's choreography. Like,
it's heaven.
That's a good mix, and they should have used that more.
I mean, what's interesting too about the production of this film is Alan Menken's longtime collaborator Howard Ashman had been diagnosed with HIV/AIDS while they were doing the music for The Little Mermaid, and I believe it was Beauty and the Beast was dedicated to him because he passed between Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast. He was too sick to collaborate with Menken on the music for this film because he ended up dying in March of 1991. So he worked with Jack Feldman on the music for this film. But, oh man, could you imagine what the music here would have been like if it was Menken and Howard Ashman?
See, I really feel like this is like Menken like embracing Ashman's style. Or Howard's style.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is why I'm like, this almost feels like it already is. And I think that's why I love it. It's because Howard was so talented. He was one of the most talented writers when it came to music.
I was going to say, if you want something to watch, go and watch Howard on Disney Plus, because that is an absolute wonderful retelling. It is. I just went and checked because it was one of those things that got pulled off and then eventually put back. But
that story is still hilarious to me.
Yeah. Go and watch Howard on Disney Plus. It is one of the best documentaries you will watch. Period.
All right, folks. That is going to wrap up our episode on Newsies. Remember, musical, yes. Film, if you want to.
If you want to see a young Christian Bale doing Christian Bale things before he's Batman.
Before he's Batman, yes. Mitch, if people want to keep up with us, where can people find us?
Do the whole thing in the Batman voice.
Go for it.
No, I'm not. I would die on it. So I was at a work thing yesterday, and I came home and I lost my voice. I'm surprised I was able to talk for as long as I did tonight. So at D+us on your social media platform of choice. I'm pretty sure we're on all of them, even though we don't really use Instagram, and I should probably figure that out.
Pretty much the only place we post anymore is TikTok.
Yeah, we're not posting on Twitter because we don't want to.
I don't want to.
We don't want to bother promote Disney at this point. There's that too. We just want to have fun. So just come hang out and let us know in the comments and all the places what you want to see and talk about and talk to us because we'd love to talk to you.
We have more shows coming soon. We do have a list of stuff that we will be talking about very soon. We are also going to be trying to talk about more stuff that is not movie or television related. Like I mentioned, there is a new video essay coming soon, all about the Disney Kingdom comic book, sitting right here behind me, actually.
Okay, Griffin, it's the middle of September. What are we going to do if we get to the middle of November and we can't talk about new stuff?
We're going to deal with it because the writers and actors getting paid is significantly more important than us talking about the Marvels.
I mean, we're going to talk about it. It just won't,
it won't be on camera.
Be here. Exactly.
Or it will be one of those that we backlog for when the strike is over.
It'll be the first thing that we produce and release as soon as the strike ends. I can promise you that.
Because
do we already have stuff in the backlog that has to come out? Yes. Will the Marvels come first?
Yes.
Also, yes.
When the strike is over.
When
No,
the strike's over.
we are trying to find more stuff to do about fun stuff within Disney and whatnot. Remember, folks, support the writers, support your strike, support the strikes. If you want to know how, go check out their resources for how to support them. I think they're doing like an auction right now too.
That sounds right.
Like I said, though, go support them how they would like. We will be back in a couple weeks with whatever episode we have next. I got a list, but if I pull up the list, I immediately break all of our camera stuff. So I'm not going to bother. Unless, Mitch, you want to bring up what we've got next on the docket.
I got stuff here. There's a bunch of
I forgot
things
what's
we've
next.
said
What
we're going to do.
are we watching next?
What we are watching next is The Greatest Showman. So we're going musical to musical, baby.
A musical that was made to be a movie. That will be a nice change of pace.
Yeah.
All right, folks, we will see you then for that episode. But until then, have a magical day.